Moshe Bar Zvi, executive producer of Israel Now News. It's so wonderful to be sitting here with you today.
Thank you, sir. I'm honored.
How and when did Hamas take control of Gaza when it was controlled by the Palestinian Authority?
Well, for so many people, it's so natural and trivial that Hamas is ruling Gaza now, and everybody just got used to it. But the fact is that about 7 years ago, the ruler in Gaza was the Palestinian Authority. But then a terror organization by the name of Hamas came into power. How? By throwing hundreds of Palestinian members of the elite unit of Fatah 17 force. They just threw them from the roof. They took over by force all their ammunition places. They got US equipment, Israeli equipment. They have made a small army of about 20,000 terrorists, secured the killings and wounding by shooting at their knees of thousands of Palestinians, 417, and got into the passage of Rafah and the passage of Erez in Israel, and just threw away the European that were about to become like UN forces and became the ruler in Gaza. But the world keeps forgetting this, so here I am to remind this.
What is Hamas' philosophy and what are its strategic goals?
Well, many people tend to believe that Hamas is part of like the Palestinian organization and the continuous conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians that eventually would bring peace on this part of the world. However, Hamas was born in philosophy of terrorizing, and philosophically it belongs to the latest trend of Al-Qaeda, of Boko Haram, of Muslim Brotherhoods. Its philosophy is very simple. They just want to wipe Israel off the map, to kill all Israelis, and one of the statements in their internal protocols is that the Jews, if they are not going to be killed, they would be sent out back to where they were born, means Europe, because they see Israel as a temporary shelter from the Holocaust survivors. But out of the 7 million Israelis that live here today, such as myself, I am 9th generation in Jerusalem, 7 million of us were born in Israel. So my question to Hamas, where are we going to go? Where do you want to throw us? Of course, this is just in humor, but the fact is that their philosophy is to go back to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem, to Jaffa, to Haifa, and to wipe out Israel of this region.
Why does Egypt hate Hamas more than Israel does?
Thank you. That's a great question. Because people tend to believe that the whole conflict with Hamas is Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But I'll share with you something that might make us all in shock. About 6 or 5 years ago, when the Egyptians wanted to show some mercy and open up a little bit the passage from Gaza to the southern port of Rafah, about 20 Hamas terrorists got in through this open-air passage. They went into the Sinai Desert. They have stopped a bus full of Egyptian soldiers coming for vacation at their homes, and they just murdered them by putting them in a line and killing all of them, 20-something soldiers, shooting all of them in the same way that Al-Qaeda and ISIS is doing now in Iraq and Syria. And the reason for doing that was only because they were Shia. And of course, Hamas is Sunni. So the idea is there is only one solution for that. We would put you in a line and we just slaughter you. It doesn't matter that we are all Muslims.
Why is the world complaining about 2,000 dead Palestinians, half of them Hamas terrorists, and does not care about the 30 to 40,000 murdered during the last month in Iraq and Syria?
Well, Steve, the unfortunate fact is that the world really is doing everything that it's capable not to know. The world is in sleepy mode, and we better wake him up before it would be too late. Because the world leadership is also in a sleepy mode. People in Europe, leaders in Europe, There are also some in America. They would rather not understand or not being aware for what is going on. The fact is that while everybody, all the world, has been looking at the 2,000 casualties in Palestine, so to speak, or the Gaza Strip, Syria have lost about 1,000 people a day by the killings internally between Muslims. There has been about 200 people that got slaughtered in Syria in the last 2.5 years. Plus about 1,000 people are getting killed by the day in Iraq. Mostly, by the way, minorities, such as the Yazidis, many Christians, Kurds, everybody are getting to be killed by the sword. But you know, the world is united in one thing. The world is united by blaming Israel. Israel is the blame. And if we have a problem with 2,000 casualties in Palestine, they would rather remember this than really cope with the real problem, which called the internal conflict between Muslim world.
What's the role of Turkey and Qatar in helping Hamas terror?
Well, you have to understand that we are having really a clash between powers here. Egypt is Shiite, Jordan is Shiite, even Iran is on this side. And on the other side, there are many countries that are backing the Sunni extremists, such as Qatar, who is really the fuel for all of this. They're just paying cash for that. And also Turkey, that by its really crazy leader, is backing for years, is backing the whole terrorism activity against Israel, and even was threatening on Israel by sending us some military vessels to break down the siege on Gaza. But their influence in the region is being done only by financing and pouring hundreds of millions of dollars for Hamas to have enough money to dig tunnels, to dig terror attack tunnels, and to try to get as much ammunition as they can get for the next round.
How will ISIS affect the crisis in the Middle East?
Well, I have to share with the viewers that ISIS is the big story. You know, the world is looking now at the microcosmos that is happening in Israel. Means everybody is looking into these small games between Israel and Hamas, 50 rockets, 100 rockets, 50 days of fighting, but nobody is looking into the big picture. And me being here is really to open up and to focus on the biggest problem. The world must be looking at the big picture now. The big picture is that ISIS, which was coming from Iraq, now taking over Syria on the way to both Lebanon and Jordan. They don't say anything about Israel, but Israel is another station towards Europe and then America. ISIS is here to kill. It's all about bloodshed. They are reading in the Quran that each conflict must be solved by the sword. That means not even getting ammunition. They take the sword and they just beheading whomever against them. And the idea of ISIS doing that, that's the big picture of the Middle East, who is being changed in front of our eyes. But people still want to focus on the small problem because it's less frightening.
Not much difference in your options there. I mean, it's you're frightened or you're less frightened. All of it's very frightening.
Yes, sir.
How was ISIS created in Iraq, and when was it created?
It's really ridiculous to think that about 10 years ago there was no ISIS, there was no Sunni terror organization. But with the upcoming invasion of the US Army into Iraq, one of the first decisions of the US regime that time, about a decade ago, was to release all the top officers and the top soldiers in the top quality military units of the Iraqi army, so there would be a new place for Shiite-based leadership in Iraq. So imagine that about 10 to 20,000 soldiers and officers that were educated military, very high quality education, going home in one day without salary, without pension, without anything. That was the real platform on which the ISIS was born. Because the answer for that was, okay, if America have released us and fire us shamefully, and in this Muslim world it's all about the ego, if they have released us and sent us home, we would revenge through the creation of a new terror organization that would kill Shia and would kill Americans.
Why is Hezbollah and Lebanon so afraid of ISIS?
Well, you know, every time you come with a new terror organization, the previous terror organization looks to you like, you know, Fifth Avenue in New York City, very peaceful. And that's exactly what happened now. Even Al-Qaeda is now trying to forget the times that they were backing ISIS, because Al-Qaeda itself, the organization who did the 9/11, Al-Qaeda itself say that ISIS are too crazy. Hezbollah is a beautiful story, because Hezbollah knows that if ISIS is going to penetrate and be successful in both Iraq and Syria and take over both countries, which they are doing, because only yesterday they have taken the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. We had been there together looking at this valley, which is now being held by all of these crooks. You know, it's amazing. So if those rebels would get into the point where they are in position to go into the Lebanese border, Hezbollah, it's even make me laugh to say, Hezbollah would be the first to get slaughtered by the same sword that has been slaughtering so many Shia in both Iraq and Syria. So Hezbollah would pay the price in blood, the same price that it was asking from the Israelis to pay.
Why did ISIS say that they would kill all Christians and Jews on their way through Europe until they get to Spain?
We all have to understand ISIS philosophy. It's not a terror organization that fights for freedom. ISIS organization, like Hezbollah, like Muslim Brotherhood, like Boko Haram, like Hamas, they have the same system. First, we get a sponsor. Second, we get the land. Third, we kill the government. Fourth, we just kill by the sword anyone that objects us. And then we are using fear. The whole idea is to creation a caliphate. A caliphate means a Muslim kingdom that is being held by the Sharia law. Sharia law is the extremist, most radical laws of Islam. It's a law where if you are going to be a thief and you theft from someone, they would cut your hand by the knife. If, God forbid, a wife has a romance outside of marriage, they would bury her until here, and all the men from the village would come and throw stones until she dies. That's how Khalifa works. It's all according to Quran, and the death must be very cruel. Why? Because people should see and get the fear into their hearts. So the whole idea of ISIS is moving as fast as possible towards Europe, go through Greece, of course after Lebanon, the Mediterranean, take over from Greece, through Italy, through Spain, and be ready for the big devil. Be ready to penetrate to America with sleeping cells that are operating now in America and waiting for the D-Day, a new D-Day in American life. And that's my opportunity to make a call to US administration. Wake up America. This is on camera. Hidden cells would wake up one day and would create terror attacks that would be 10 times more strong than 9/11, because they would be coming from within by Americans that have voted to Muslims and they are carrying US passports. So be aware of that, because that would happen if America would not stop ISIS in the gates of Europe that is now coming. America would need to deal with those cells operating in New York, LA, Dallas, Miami, and wherever in America.
Why did ISIS behead an American citizen and broadcast it online? And what was the social purpose of this brutal act?
Let me tell you, these are not only that they are artists by their cruelty, they really know how to kill in terms of getting the pain done. But the whole idea of ISIS is to plant fear in the hearts of billions of people around the world. So that's why all of them will wear black, always. All of them would wear black mask, as the guy who just beheaded the American journalist. Why? This guy was an English guy, was born in London, UK simple guy that made hip hop all his life, but then wake up at the age of 19 and decided to move to Iraq to behead the Americans. So the whole idea is creating fear. And when you create fear and the whole world know that ISIS is coming, everybody would either run away or convert to Islam. And that's what they want to achieve. They want to be sure that after you see them on YouTube, and they are doing fantastic job in planting fear in the hearts of the world, but the hearts of the Israelis, we are not afraid of them. We would wipe this organization out in the name of the world. We are cleaning this. If God forbid it would happen, we would do the job for most of the world, because we would be the only one that would understand the risk of the world. And that's the point. But coming back to the fear plantation, the whole idea of ISIS is using swords, cutting heads, creating a lot of drama with blood, and people will be afraid. I can assure you that if one day ISIS would get into Europe, people would either convert or run away from them. I cannot see even one country that would fight with her freedom. And the only idea of ISIS is to create, coming back to Salah ad-Din days, where Salah ad-Din was a Muslim leader that controlled Europe. By the end of this decade, year, century, whatever, those ISIS, if they would get, as they say, to Spain, they would just take thousands of boats, thousands of airplanes, thousands of hidden sleepy cells in America, and would take America.
Any closing remarks?
My closing remarks is to send love and sympathy to all of the Daystar viewers around the world, because they know who is the righteous. They know the scriptures. They know the Bible. And I want to thank him personally for Marcus and Johnny Lamb for having such a huge heart for Israel. They are the leaders of millions of viewers. And I thank you all for doing that. And personally, Steve, I thank you. We are spending so much time together in your second home or maybe first home, but I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I know that you are a true lover of Israel. You are a human living example for how much love can be contributed for Israel, and of course how much love we can give you back on behalf of the people of Israel. That's the way I feel now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. God bless you.